Good morning. You find me here at Swan Valley Lake in Yateley. It's a lake that has been around all the time that Yateley has been famous for the fish it's produced, but it's never quite seen the same limelight. Which is a little bit unfortunate. In the early years, overshadowed by Yateley West in the Carp Lake and the North Lake and the Pads Lake, Basil, Heather the Lever and the rest of the fish that swam there. And in more recent times by Sanders, which is an incredible day ticket water just up the road. But this place at the right time of year probably may have 9 or 10 40s in it, plenty of 30-pounders and some absolutely quality fish and fishing. I'm having to stay fairly close to home of late for various reasons we won't get into, but this is the perfect place for me to come and do some fishing. I've been looking for places close to home and this absolutely fits the bill. And when I tell you, and this is a Monday morning, I'm very lucky I can fish a couple of nights midweek. There was no other cars in the car park, which absolutely amazed me with such a wonderful water. There's plenty of fish in here. It's not what you call a massively difficult lake, I don't think, although I'm probably just about to make it look that way. It's just got character. It's got some wonderful fish in it, as I say, and I fished here 5 years ago. 2019 in July. I think I did about 8 nights and all. I had some wonderful fish out of here. I really did, with all my normal tactics, but I think since it's been open as a day ticket water, things might have changed on the bait in front, the levels of bait and the kind of bait that I use. So I've got that to think about. I've got to think about this swim that I've chosen. This is where I saw most of the activity this morning, but I've got a feeling this might be one of the most popular swims on the lake, and probably most of the time it is occupied when there are people here. Whatever, I've logged a couple of things away in my mind. If I need to move tomorrow, if I need to move later on today because of what I'm seeing, then I'll do that. But for now, I'm in here and I need to get a lead out and investigate the real estate that's behind me here. I've said it before, but the best conversations I ever have when I'm fishing are the ones I have with my lead, and after 3 casts, I've found something that I didn't expect to find. From all those years ago, I don't remember finding really hard bottom where you felt a thump with the lead. Not gravel, but it almost feels very clay-like. And I can pull it maybe half a rod length, and then it gets caught up in the weed. And I did 2 more casts, and the same thing happened. To me, that is an absolutely perfect spot to present a bait. I clipped the rod up at 11 wraps. That's what you're allowed out of this swim. I put half a wrap on it, which allows me a little bit of spring back, and however much I'm going to pull back. The others will be wrapped up at 11, and that should get me absolutely bang on the spot. There is nobody else here, but I don't want to interfere with people if they arrive or change what I've done and presented in this swim. So that's what we're going to do. Bait wise, I'm still umming and ahhing. There will be some 15 and 10 mil cell boilers involved, whatever happens, but I'm wondering on pellets, because I know there's a lot of tension here, and I'm wondering on whether I should put a little bit of corn in just as a little bit of a sight bob. But yeah, while I'm mooching over all of that, I'll get the hook baits ready and we'll get myself in the ball game. That, oof, bang on. I love it when it does that. Well, brew in hand, because the rods are out. It took a little bit of a while, but I wanted to get it absolutely smack on, and I'm the same every time I go fishing. Once I've found some activity and found probably the area of most activity, That's the bit where my eyes stay on it, and what I'm looking for is for it to end, to be honest with you. So those carp have hopefully melted off into the weed or somewhere over in a snag to have a rest. And then I start my work, getting the hook baits in position and baiting them up. It's tempting, very tempting on a brand new wind, a northerly wind. Yes, it's a little cold, but I don't mind that this time of year. That water temperature is still very high. I would imagine a wind of this strength is going to pump a little bit of oxygen into the water, make the carp feel a little better. And I think any new wind at this time of year is a good thing. So, and we had a word with the head bailiff, came around a little while ago. He thinks we're in a good place. There's been a couple of fish out from this area. It hasn't been fishing very well, which kind of some of the reason why I didn't go mad with the bait. I've got 2 rods on the same spot, but they're probably 7 or 8 yards apart, and I've put 10 spods out on that one, and I put 6 out on the rod on its own, and they're all 3 of them on that firm sort of where it just glides across it. It doesn't get dug in when you try and move the lead, it just starts sliding straight away. I love that. And I've got all 3 of them on it, and I think the traps have been set where I saw fish, where I saw the bubbling coming up, and yeah, I couldn't be happier with it all. The lake it's got that feeling with the snags in the water. It hasn't all been cut away. I think they've cut away a lot under the surface, which you can see where the water level's down a little bit, but it all helps. And it makes the fishing that much more interesting, and I have found it very interesting this morning, and I think the session will get more interesting the further we get into it. One of the best tips I think I can give to guys and girls out there who have to do their carp fishing amongst having a family, you know, looking after the kids, looking after the wife, and all the things that go on with that, and probably the weekends are taken up with it, probably doing overnighters in the middle of the week, and I see so many people doing it, and the only thing I would say is make enough time for yourself at the start of the day or the beginning of the day, at the end of the day, to go and have a look at the water. The timings on the clock and when it gets dark and when the sun rises are sort of perfect for going an hour before you go to work or an hour after work to have a look around the lake. And if you can see where the carp are at those particular times, it makes your overnighters during the week so much easier to get on with. Find out where those fish are, gain as much information as you can, and then when you get there, you can cast out onto those spots and hopefully get the bite you're after. And talking about looking for things, everybody should be looking for things at this time of year and at any time of year. Not looking at a TV, but looking at the water, looking for signs. And one of the best signs, particularly at this time of year, when the weed is starting to die off, it drops down, a lot of it's floating to the surface and you see stuff floating around, is looking at that weed, and you can tell very often where the carp are. They're forcing their way through it, breaking bits of it off. A lot of the bubbles aren't because those carp are tearing the bottom up or even feeding at all. It's because they're pulling the weed up out the bottom so easily at this time of year as they swim through it. They are looking for food, of course they're looking for food. And the weed still holds some of that weed, some of the food that they rely on. It's why, to me, one of the most important things to look for is the green stuff. It's important to the fish and it's important to us to be able to catch them. So I always, if I can find it, fish as near to the weed as I can. Of course, all the time you're walking around the lake and looking, you're wondering how you're going to fish it and how you're going to bait that water. I can say without doubt that boilies come into their own at this time of year, and maybe a little bit more of them than you would have used at other times of the year. I fish all year round with them, but I do notice a difference, certainly when I can start to increase the levels of the boilies that I'm using. But don't let a little spherical ball of bait that isn't just what you're going to use. You can get boilers in different sizes. You can break boilers up and do all kinds of things with them, dust them all up, keeps the fish in your baited area longer. But if you're having a walk around and you're looking for all these things, make sure you take a pound or two of boilies down the lake with you. There's every opportunity now and again where you can just slip a bit of bait into various spots once everybody's back are turned or it's dark enough to cover your activities, and it gives you something to build on when your time's limited, when you're doing overnighters or just in between family commitments. And let's not forget one of the greatest things here, and all the things that I'll say, it is not winter yet. Those water temperatures are still very high. I'm fishing on a rather chilly northerly wind today, and it's in the late September. But this is perfect. This is the kind of wind that is going to move fish around at this time of year. In the winter, a northerly wind, I'd probably be fishing off the back of it. But now, I fish with the wind. I'm a bit of a slave to it, but it's perfect. Just remember that this is not winter fishing. You're nowhere near it. Of course, fishing in the autumn has a few of its own problems. We've mentioned weed already, and the weed becomes what they call diatrus that lays on the bottom of the lake, and very often those clear areas, even if the fish have been feeding there the night before, it doesn't take much for the dying weed to sit on top of it. To that end, almost inevitably, I will use pop-ups during the autumn, just so that I know my presentation is perfect above any dying weed on the bottom. There's also leaves falling off the trees. And all that stuff ends up on the bottom, and the last thing I want to do is have a bottom bait hidden under a couple of old conkers, a couple of acorns and some big leaves. So yeah, to make sure my bait is available to the fish, that is the most important thing for me. Autumn has been an incredible time for me over the years, and there are probably several really, really good examples of the fish that I've caught. But one that sticks out to me, mainly because of the bait that I used and the bait that was being poured quite literally by the gallon into this particular lake. And I decided, I hadn't fished at Manor Lake up on linear fisheries since 1998. We caught the biggest 2 fish in the lake between us, and we caught a lot of the other fish too. And that was the last time we went. And then in 2011, I decided to go down there, and it was before it got really, really heavily stocked, and it was starting to be a complete fishery. There was one fish in there called Spike, and he was around about a mid-40, but I just liked him. He was a long, lean fighting machine, and I wanted to catch him. And I went down on the 9th of November 2011. This was my first trip down there, and I was armed with probably about 5 or 6 kilo of boilies. I was using a Mainlines hybrid then. I had it in 10 and 15 mils like I always have them. And I went down. I fished in the 3rd swim. I don't know what the swims are called. And I didn't put a lot of bait out. I just had a good feel around with the lead. That gives me an idea what the weed situation's like in there, and just got a general feel for it again. And yeah, the night passed very, very quietly. And I woke up in the morning and I couldn't help noticing a little trail of oil that was coming from my right to the left on the wind. And I reeled one of my rods in very, very quickly. To me, it was carp activity or activity of some kind caused by fish on the bottom. I reeled the rods in, checked one of them. It was a pop-up. It sank like a brick, but it was still popped up off the bottom. I thought, that'll do for me. Pulled one of the buzzers out and a rear rod rest and a landing net, and I went down to have a look. And I didn't really have to look at anything. What I did was I pushed the bank sticks in, threw the landing net down, and I whacked my hook bait about 30, 40 yards beyond where it was. It was about 80 yards out. And I reeled it as near to the surface as I could, and I sort of lowered it, bonk, onto the spot. As soon as it hit the bottom, unknown to me, I'm trying to put the rod down on the rest and the line's pulling. I've got a 24-pound mirror hanging on the end, and it proved exactly what was going on there. All that was left to do, move all my gear down. I spotted out 3 Kia hybrid 10 and 15 millers onto the spot, and everybody was coming down, and everybody just thought I'd caught it on maggots. I hadn't. I caught it on boilies, and they were all surprised. There was one guy even walked past. They were from up north somewhere. They'd put 15 gallons of red maggots in that week. It was just crazy what they were doing, expecting to get a bite. And at 6:30 in the morning, unbelievably, the rod was far and away in the rest. And I went down. As soon as I picked up the rod, I knew it was something, it was a big fish, at least. And it stayed deep and did all the typical things that carp do, the big old lunges, and the closer I got, the more angry the fish became. And as he came up, I could see my little stiff link pop up hanging out of his mouth. It was a little red hybrid pop up with a little bit of yellow plastic on top of it, and it made me smile. And he came up to the surface, and he just lay there. And in the red filter of my head torch, I slipped him into my net. And on my second night fishing, on my first session back on Manor, I'd caught spike. 44 pounds and 6 ounces. Thankfully, the guys from Fox were coming up later that day. They were coming up to do some filming, so I asked Roy if I could retain the fish till they got there, and they filmed the whole thing. Unbelievable. I caught my target fish on the second day on a bait that they thought was redundant on a lake like that, which they so obviously aren't. You know, listening to the trends often leads you up the wrong path. I stuck to my guns, used my boilies. I packed up about an hour later, put my gear in the car, and I drove away. I thank Spike for the memories, and I've never, ever been back. Mid-morning, and it's always that time of day where I'm thinking, what should I or shouldn't I be doing for the rest of the session? And it's probably a point that where everything can pivot on it. What have I seen? Through the night, fish well over to my right, just boshed out the odd one. I'd heard nothing that I think in the rest of the lake. It was just definitely quiet. The wind had died down as winds normally do, and it just sort of fizzled into nothing. I had a couple of serious liners, but that's all the indicator activity I had all night. It's been incredibly quiet. I woke up at 5, went back to sleep for a couple of hours, got out of bed at 7, and all the time I was watching some fizzing, probably 30 yards beyond where these two rods are, but in a line with them. And one patch of that fizzing stayed in exactly the same place. And you always think, well, it's just something fizzing up. It was such a big fizz. And then all the time there was things occurring around it and lines of it coming up. Well, I kept on looking at it. It had gone on for about an hour, and you don't expect that sort of intense feeding, if it is carp, to go on that long. And all of a sudden, a fish has boomed out to the right of it, just to the right, a little bit nearer me, but I think he was part of what was going on there. And half an hour later, another one came out just to the left of it. So I just kept my eye on the spot. I chucked my remote control to Brad, and I legged it round the other side, hoping that it would not subside by the time I got there. And I've sort of lined it up with stuff on the far bank, assessed how far it is. I didn't take a rod. I didn't want to cast at them before I had to, and probably spook them off of it. But I've got that spot lined up. So I've got a spot in my mind. in saying that, after that, I've seen fish. There's a snag right over to my right. I've seen fish, not in it, but a long way out, probably 20 yards out from it. I've seen 2 fish over there. I've seen a fish on exactly the same line that I'm fishing, between my middle rod and where my left-hand rod is positioned. And you've had the odd bit of fizzing coming up. So it's all, you know, it's all in the balance. And people say, you know, you're moving from a baited area that you've established. Well, nothing in carp fishing has been established until you've had a bite from it. And I haven't had a bite from this spot. And I think a little bit of bait, which I would probably only use a little bit if I move now, is better in that area than a lot of bait over here. And although I didn't really put a lot out yesterday, I've so much flipping little fish over the top of what I put out, and I suspect the smaller stuff might have been nibbled away. But you know, you just don't know. I've got fish either side of me. Does that mean to say they aren't going to come in and have a look at what I did tonight? I just don't know. I'm still hopping from one foot to the other at the moment, but as it stands, this wind is not as cold as it was, and I believe it's got a little bit more easterly in it now. It's just not as cold as it was yesterday, and I'm hoping that things will change. I think I've got some company down on the bank to my left, so you know, we'll have to see how that plays on things as well. But the lake evidently is fishing very, very difficultly at the moment. There's a guy down the far end of the lake on the back of the wind where I was thinking of going yesterday. He said he saw fish there yesterday, but he hadn't seen very much this morning, and he was looking for a move. If I was him, I would just stay there, and I think if anybody's going to get a bite, it's probably going to be him. But do I stay or do I go? There's a question, eh? I just don't know yet, but over the next hour or so I will have made up my mind, and once I've made up my mind, nothing will stop me. I often wonder how many of us actually live in the past or crave the things that happened in our past, and I have to confess I'm probably one of them. Autumn for me 20 years ago was the time when I was licking my lips, getting things ready. The fish had spawned during the summer. I'd leave them alone for a lot of the time, get over it and get on with life. And I waited till the autumn months, start getting into the start of the winter, when the fishing used to be unbelievable. And we could say that the carp themselves have changed. Yes, they have, but it's more to do with the fishing itself that's changed. It's become so popular now, carp fishing. There are so many people that want to do it and are getting into it, which is a wonderful thing. Far better than just sitting at home watching the television and plenty of other things too. But it's changed massively, and I think a lot of it's got to do with angling pressure. This is a day ticket water, and yesterday when I arrived, I walked round, I arrived in the car park, there was no one there. Mine was the only car in the car park. I actually took a photograph of Daisy, my little van, in the car park all on her own. It was wonderful. And I didn't know where to go, but I had a good chance to walk around, and I set my traps last night. Unfortunately, it got down to 2 degrees, evidently, somebody told me this morning. Wouldn't have surprised me if there was a bit of frost around. But it's the pressure we put on these fish. Now, carp aren't more intelligent nowadays. That isn't the way things go in a carp's life, I don't think. I think they just become more and more aware of the immense pressure they're put under. Lead's landing around them all the time. I mean, bait boats are allowed on this lake, unfortunately, I must say, but they are allowed. But they create massive pressure because they can even get into areas where anglers can't cast to and feed them there. And they get caught in areas they thought they were safe in. And it just changes the whole face of it. And I've seen nothing today, where in the day yesterday, even though it was so cold, there was the odd fish showing. Wouldn't surprise me if they were just under the surface when the sun came out, just to get a bit of sun on their back, as cold as it was. I'm not a doomsayer, but we've got to try and make things as best we can, and that's what I've done. And hopefully, fingers crossed and everything else, there's a carp involved. There's so many arguments with different carp anglers about all kinds of fishing, really, but I've always found that in the autumn months through September, October and November, that my bites come at night, in the dark hours, mainly between midnight and say 6 o'clock in the morning. For whatever reason that be, it might be that I've baited a bit heavier than others and it's taken them a while to get through to my hook bait. I don't know what the answer is, but that's what I found, and I think that's always a good thing for overnighters, guys who are working, guys who are out there slaving away, you know, keeping the family happy. That there's an opportunity for them, you know, and it's a time of year when you really need to get out, and you know, family life is such a demanding thing. But if you can get out with the knowledge you can get a bite in those hours that you're away from home, then more power to your elbow. I've baited up again well, I haven't baited up, I put a spot over each spot just to freshen it up and put the hook bait back in position. The lake has got, to me, from what it was when we got here, very, very busy. Lots of lines now coming out in front of my baited area and beyond. There's a guy fishing over there, and I put him down. My money's on him to get a bite tonight, as well as me, hopefully. Yeah, he's just fishing in the edge, and I have seen a couple of carp over there in an area that I looked at today, actually, but he was already in there, so I couldn't jump in that swing. But no, you know, it's I'm having a bit of second night-itis at the moment. It gives you the willies, doesn't it, when you think this is my last night and I've got to go home. But it's been another bit of that learning curve, and I've enjoyed every second of it, and a carp will be the icing on the cake. Good morning, and what a wonderful morning it is. I might look a bit sleepy with a bit of sleep in my eye, but when I went back to my bed chair, I did so with a monstrous smile on my face. We came here hoping to catch a carp for the cameras, and at 4:30 this morning, one of the rods ripped off, one of the ones I thought would go if we were going to get a bite. And yeah, the problem I had, it was weed from the beginning to the end. The weed obviously dying back now as it is a little bit easier to break off, and although it was a steaming run, he was taking line from a very tight clutch. As soon as I got it moving towards me, the weed gets over its head, and it's just blind, and I literally reeled it in. And by the time it was going into the net and Brad arrived, there was no time to do any filming of the fight itself. I have to tell you, it wasn't the most exciting fight I've ever had, but when I peeled back the net and looked inside, I knew it had all been worthwhile. And whilst I'm finishing off a cup of tea here, I'll leave you with Brad filming on the camera with the fish in the net, and yeah, take a look at this. Okay, mate, what a reveal. Look at that. Wow. That's proper autumnal gold, isn't it? Well, you know, the added pressure on the lake had me thinking about things, but one of the two rods that were the furthest away from the activity, if you like, roared off at 4:30 this morning, and this stunning 31-pound mirror rolled into my rather weed-filled net. What an incredible fish, and yeah, the boilies, that boilie combination and a little bit of pellet, it's just a winner wherever I go. And yeah, the cell, I just think works in every water it's ever been put in. So yeah, it's an incredible feeling. A crazy scrap. There was so much weed involved, it didn't really liven up till it got in the margins, but once there it let me know a thing or two. Yeah, incredible. What a wonderful, wonderful autumn mirror. I cannot even begin to thank you. You are a stunning fish. Look at that. There's only one thing you can say, although I'm not on my feet, like my fire. I tell you, it's so much warmer this morning, and yeah, what a wonderful way to well, it's not ended, is it? We might have more, but if that's it all over, I don't care. Catching a fish like that, 31 pound, perfect linear, absolutely fantastic. Thank you, Swan Valley. It will take a long time to wipe this smile after my face after that fish. What a spectacular carp, and for the cameras to, yeah, absolutely made my day. The start of the session itself, though, was a very, very confusing time for me, and I think carp fishing can often throw you into that sort of mode. I arrived and the lake was totally empty. Nobody here to talk to. No, you know, I mean, if I never ask people for information, but if they're prepared to give it, I will accept it. But I had to make a decision all on my own, and what I did eventually was made a choice of a swim, bearing on the fact I'd fished here a few times back 5 years ago. But things can change in carp fishing. It's not often the thing to do, but I had to make a gamble. That was the first gamble of the trip, and I moved into this swim. I know there's a shallow-ish sort of plateau out there. There's weed all around it, which I found out with the lead, but it was the perfect place to put 2 of my hook baits. And once I'd done all that, I was very happy with what I'd done. Obviously, with more people arriving on the lake, and you start to feel that little bit more closed in, and did I make the right decision? But I think the homework I'd done with the lead to begin with made me always feel at least 2 of my rods were in the right place, undisturbed by other people. Now, I woke up the first morning and we hadn't had a bite. And it was, you can get quite depressed like that, especially with the camera clicking away around you. And over the way there, off of the stairs, it's a horseshoe lake. So I've got the bank of the inside of the horseshoe over there, and about 30 yards out, all the way down that bank, there was a load of fizzing going on, and it didn't stop for a long time, and it was moving, it was certainly carp feeding there. And all of a sudden, after looking at it for about an hour, one boomed out. That was enough for me. And I was looking to make what I feel is another gamble. I went down there with a lead. There were people setting up opposite, so I didn't want to cast that too far, but I could certainly get to the place the carp were. I had a lead around, and all I found was gravel. I couldn't find any silt and all the stuff that I like to fish in. There was the odd clump of weed, and it was quite uninteresting. I wondered what those carp had been feeding on. Obviously, I went down there after they finished, all the fizzing had stopped. And on the walk back, I thought, no, I'm just going to stay where I am and stay on that bait that I've introduced, and I hope, your fingers crossed half the time, but you're hoping you've made the right decision. And at 4:30 this morning, yeah, all those dreams came together all at the same time, and yeah, with that beautiful mirror. And it's Swan Valley, I've always said it's a place that sort of lived in the shadow of the other lakes in the area, and it should stand proud all on its own. It's got some wonderful fish in it, fish to well over 40 pound, and yeah, I think there's a little bit of something for everyone here, and I can't thank the place enough.